It's June 1st, 2016. Welcome to the first episode of the Squashcast. I'm your host, Rob, and joining me today is former South African number one, Jesse Engelbrecht.
Hi Rob, looking forward to this. This should be quite an interesting venture to talk about squash on a Squashcast. So there's not that much else out there, so hopefully the people out there will enjoy our ramblings and tell lots of other people about it.
Exactly, yeah. And for this first episode, it's probably a good idea to talk about the most recent tournament on the PSA World Tour, which was last week's PSA Dubai World Series Finals. There were a lot of games going on, a lot of heat, a lot of fast-moving games, and some great squash.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I managed to catch bits of it throughout the week in between my coaching commitments, but it looked fantastic. I've got a good mate that lives out there. He went to the final and we were texting each other while he was watching the final. And yeah, to have it in somewhere like Dubai, what a place, you know, they really know how to put an event on. And I believe it's there for the next 2 or 3 years as well. So I can only see it going from strength to strength. And I just think it had an impact where a lot of the general public were paying attention to it. You know, the quality of the filming from Squash TV, the great commentating, the slow-mos, the YouTube channel, you know, all of that, plus it being held in Dubai at the base of the Burj Khalifa was a phenomenal event. And hopefully it's the start of something that's going to grow our game into something even bigger than it is.
Yeah, it was really exciting to see it in such a great location. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about each day individually and pick out a game that we enjoyed watching, and then we'll move on to the semi-finals and talk a bit more about the finals in a bit more depth. So with day one, what was your favorite game of the day?
Well, it was the big upset. It was Miguel Rodriguez beating Nick Matthew 2-1. Absolutely belting match. Both players putting everything on the line. You know, Nick trying to play his slightly more attritional game, you know, kind of get the game on his terms, and Miguel running around like the Colombian cannonball he is and throwing himself everywhere. Some of you would have maybe seen what it was at, I think, 6-10 in the first game. Probably arguably one of the best rallies of the season, with Miguel through the legs, behind the back, diving, and eventually Nick hitting a tin uncharacteristically. But I think at that point Nick was just laughing as well. It was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I think with that rally, Nick was a bit frustrated because he couldn't kill the rally, and Miguel had got up off the floor. He played on, probably out of just sportsmanship, and I think he assumed he would then win the rally, but you can't assume anything against Miguel.
Yeah, and I think Nick is great like that. You know, he realizes it's a super series, and you know, PSA points on riding on it. So I think he played to that a bit, which was all credit to him. But it looked like it damaged Nick as well, not that rally in particular, but that first game. And you know, by the end, Miguel was jumping and bouncing around as he usually does. And Nick just looked like he got squeezed out at the end of the third game.
Yeah, it was the ultimate hustle match, with Miguel picking up so many shots. The slow-mos really emphasizing how much court he can cover in such a short amount of time. With the heat of the court really favouring the Colombian.
So, what was your favourite match of the day, Rob?
I actually really enjoyed one of the women's games, which was Nour El Shabini versus Raneem El Walili. It was just like all the other games. It was a 2-love, but it was 2-love to El Walili, 10-12 and 15-17, which was probably the closest game of the day, even though it was 2-love. It seemed like both players were looking to put a lot of pace on the ball, not a lot of precision at times, but sort of a really exciting game to kind of counterbalance what you normally see in the women's game.
But yeah, that's that Egyptian model a little bit. It's kind of it's almost power over precision. You know, like, let's open the court up, let's take the ball in short earlier than my opponent, and actually use the short ball to kind of work a combination of it. It's fantastic when you do watch two Egyptians going at it like that, especially to that back their skills. And yeah, it's just coming into the game more and more now, you know. So you see like I suppose an Egyptian player versus a Western player, and it's fantastic. But I think even the Western style is having to catch up a little bit with that fast flair pace.
Yeah, you see it more and more these days. So day two, anything stick out for you?
Again, picking on Nick Matthew a little bit here, but Nick Matthew and Matthew Castagnet, the Frenchman probably taking a little bit of advantage over Nick's physical state at that point. Someone like Matthew Castagnet is a physical specimen. He's almost a younger version of Nick Matthew. The way he moves and the style he plays, he's always trying to dominate the middle. And yeah, he just looked that little bit more on it than Nick did on the day. So all credit to the Frenchman for coming out to love. Him clinching the first game 12-10, obviously he set the tone, and Nick just couldn't get a foothold in that second, and eventually Matthew Castagnet ran out 2-love winner.
Yeah, you said it yourself at the time that it was Castagnet's lateral movement that really helped him take those games, that very close 12-10. It was a big surprise considering his first game against El Shabaghi, where he really didn't look like he could move. His adductor, as the commentators were saying during the match, had been recently damaged in a European team match, and it didn't really look like he'd even turn up for today's match, considering the way he played against Mohammed in day one. But it was a huge surprise when I saw this game.
Yeah, no, credit to someone like Matthew Castagnet, able to almost play on a slight injury and still dig out a win. Looking at his form leading into it, how fantastically he did well at the Canary Wharf Classic, kind of almost out of nowhere really, but he's almost kind of cementing himself as a top 10 player pretty securely now. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going to go into the season ahead, because there were naysayers for someone like Matthew Castagnet that he was so limited, and he's proven a lot of people wrong. I'm not saying he's the most flair player, but he's taken what he's got and taken it to the nth degree. So credit to him, and I for one am looking forward to seeing the season up.
Yeah, I think I can probably be accused of not appreciating how well he could play, and certainly in the last 12 to 18 months he's really shot up the rankings, which is excellent. So day 3 might not be a surprise to anyone who followed the tournament, but we're going to take 2 players from our previous favourite games, which is Castagnet versus Rodriguez. And it's a little bit odd, this game, considering it ended halfway through the second game at 6-4 with Castagnet retiring. But really the first game itself was enough to excite any kind of player. It was a real superb display of retrieving it and speed, and as Joey said, the rallies really open up the lungs and push players to their full potential.
Yeah, and I'm sure most of you that watch squash TV are really appreciative of the commentating going on. It does add so much to it, and just some of the terminology that's coming up. Old disco time Rodriguez. When he played that backhand drive over his own head. It's just fantastic to see all these variations, and then I suppose the commentators also coming to the party and making the game accessible to the general public. So no, it's super exciting where it's going, and I think what happened in Dubai is just the tip of the iceberg with where the game's going to be going.
Yeah, it was real exhibition squash at times, a real chess match, a classic game of consistent hitting and then looking for that opening, just like that rally, as you said earlier, with the disco time, where the rally's been going for sort of 90 seconds until any kind of opening appears, and it was really good fun to see. So let's talk about the semi-finals. We had Nicole David versus Raneem El-Walili and Laura Mazzara versus Noor El-Shabini. It was kind of what we expected with the top 4 seeds making the semi-finals in the women's, but probably the more entertaining game was Nicole David versus Raneem El-Walili.
Yeah, no, sure. I think a case of Nicole David trying to play her game and her style, which not to sound disparaging, is looking slightly older now, the style of play, compared to the kind of the Egyptians who can physically match her, but have probably got more of a range of shots. So, Raneem was able to kind of move the ball around a little bit more, take it in, and then also match up with Nicole for her pace and getting onto the ball. So, Nicole might have to kind of think about her game moving forward, because it almost seems like she's losing in the quarters and semis of most of the events now.
Yeah, I think with this game in particular, it was quite clear that she started off a little slow, losing the first game 11-5, but she had some pretty crisp shots in that first, and she took that into the second to win that one 11-8. But unfortunately, the third game eluded her 11-8 to Raneem. The other game, Laura versus Noor El-Shabini, was it was a good game. It was almost a mirror image of the first 2 games of the World Championship finals from a few weeks ago, 12-10, 11-6 to Laura. Laura looked imperious all week, so it wasn't a surprise to me that she made the final.
Yeah, no, great for Laura to kind of hit that good bit of form. She looks like she's been building it now. And yeah, I think I saw something on Twitter. There was obviously a bit of, I don't know, people talk about Laura doesn't have the passion and doesn't show it, but I don't agree with that. You see her fist pumping and getting really into it most of the time. So me, for one, I enjoy watching her play and watching the passion kind of come through, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's complete nonsense. I mean, I've seen her play however many times, and I've never agreed with that line of thinking. So when we look at the men's matches, we had Greg Gaultier versus Rodriguez and Cameron Pilley versus El Shabaghi, with Greg taking Rodriguez 2-love, 11-7, 11-7, and it almost seemed like Miguel didn't have a lot left after his fantastic matches in the group stage, but Greg is that other level that it's going to need something extra to get past.
Yeah, no, I think Greg is an ideal match for Greg in that situation. Maybe not a huge amount of pressure on him. I think deep down he probably knows he can beat Miguel most times, even if Miguel is on form. And, I think Greg, 2 games, probably just sensed that Miguel was just a few % off, and the French general as he is probably took massive advantage of that, as was evident by the scoreline. I didn't get to see the end of the match, but did you think he looked quite comfortable, Greg, at the end?
Yeah, it really was. He's so confident all week, and just had an answer for everything that Miguel could give you.
It was really nice, just kind of, most of you would have seen his kid running onto court most times, and his wife and that, and it just looks like it's an extra level or extra layer of joy that Greg's got in his life and his game now. He doesn't seem to get as tense and wound up, and he seems like he's got that balance. So, great to see him kind of embracing the family life and with his kid running on the court most of the time.
Yeah, and I think that's going to come into play next season as well. He's going to be a lot calmer. You've seen it more recently. A few years ago, he lost sort of 3 championship finals, and that can be really demoralising for a player. But if you're a bit calmer and you're more comfortable with your play, then hopefully you can push forward. So the other game was Cameron Pilley versus El Shabaghi, and if I said to you last Friday morning, who do you think is going to win? What do you think you would have said?
Yeah, listen, you would have backed El Shabaghi all day long there. You just haven't seen him lose a match for months now. He's been so dominant, and and credit to Cameron Pilley to firstly get to the final, because he was a late entry into the Super Series, the semi-final, and then for Cameron Pilley to go and win it 2-love. I think it was evident that Mohammed was struggling with his body. You could see, I think on Twitter he mentioned something about it afterwards. Not grapes, he just genuinely was too flat. But I'd almost like to kind of give credit to Cameron Pilley for that. Like a gutsy, massive first game, 11-9, got off to a lead in the second, and then it just looked like Mohammed wasn't as interested. The fight wasn't there as much, and you can't blame Mohammed. He's pretty much done everything this season you can ask of him, besides obviously winning the Super Series final. So yeah, just really nice for someone like an outsider like Cameron to take that match.
Yeah, I think, talking of Mohammed El Shabaghi, his season was, he only lost 1 of the qualifying tournaments for this tournament, and that was to Greg. So there's no real shame in that. I think he'll be a little bit annoyed, but considering he's still very young, he's going to go forward. He'll win this, in the future, and push on from this. But all credit to Cameron Pilley for making the Saturday's final. Really enjoyed this match. Just seeing a guy that I've looked up to for a really long time. Very similar style player, very tall player, with a lot of power, which was great to see. So when we move to the final, we'll talk Greg and Cam first, because it wasn't as straightforward as you might have thought. It was a 3-1 win to Greg, but what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, listen, when I was watching it, the way Greg came out, I think the commentator said Cameron didn't do much wrong. He put up massive resistance. Greg was just strutting around, in his best form. When Greg gets on that, I suppose that strut, I call it, where he's got his chest out, he's on that tee, he's just dominating, he's chopping the ball in short, he's volleying everything. Look, there's not many people in the world that can actually do much against that. So credit to Greg to get to that point. What I thought was interesting was when Cameron dug in and fought back and snuck that third, I thought I could have seen a little sign of Greg imploding a little bit like he's done in the past. There's been a couple of British Opens and a couple of World Opens where he's lost in the final from a similar position. The player he's playing has just asked him a question in the third game, and I thought when Cameron came on for the fourth, I could see that happening. I could see Greg letting it go. But again, combination of Greg being a bit maturer, but also maybe someone like Cameron not that familiar in that situation might not have been able to convert that. What did you think of that final?
Yeah, I think I really do agree with that third game. With Cameron taking it 11-8, it could have been the case that with a Nick Matthew or a Rami Shaw in the past, that Greg didn't really have another answer. He came out of the blocks flying 11-4, 11-5 in the first two, and it was enough to win 2-love in the first round. But when you get to the final and the semi, they're talking about best of 5 games, so it's a standard game. And I think the way Greg reacted to losing that third game was superb. He went 5-1 up in that final fourth game, and that really just put a stamp on the final game. And Pilly's so tired at this point that there's not a lot left that he can give. Anything else you want to talk?
I think I couldn't agree more with those points. And again, just Pilly mounted a bit of a charge again towards the end of the fourth, and there was almost a glimmer of it happening again. But credit to Greg for shutting it down, and you could see the joy on his face. There's a couple of bitty lets / no lets at match ball, which is not great to see. I don't think it was anyone's fault getting in the way or anything, but it would have been just nice if it was a pure finish. I think it ended on a video review and then a no let to Cameron Pilly. But listen, credit to Greg, World Super Series winner for 2016.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to Greg. We're going to finish by talking about the women's match, which, in my opinion, was a little bit more entertaining. It was a 3-2, 11-9, 6-11, 11-5, 12-10, 11-5. This game could not have been closer for these two girls, and it was a real back and forth where nobody really had the dominant position, because every time somebody got on top, it just swung back the other way, and it was a really entertaining game to see.
Yeah, no, brilliant squash and off, like quite pure squash at times, and then the flip side, completely open and throwing that ball around. I think Laura was trying to bring the game back to the pure side of the game, the straight line hitting the length. When she got on the ball in the front, just popping a little counter drop, and Reneem was trying to combat that, chucking in angles and trickle boast and a few down the middle. So it was a real great kind of cat and mouse game there. And fantastic to watch. And just look at that fourth game, the one that Laura snuck 12-10. Wow, that obviously set the tone for the fifth, but that could have easily been 3-1 to Reneem. But for someone for like Laura to get that fourth and then come out like a steam train in the fifth, just I think Reneem's confidence got knocked a little bit. And once again, the way Laura finished, the fist pump, the emotion, like the joy about winning an event like that, you can still see she's got that burning desire to play at that level.
Yeah, it really was great to see her so excited with the win at the end. And I think you're right, that fourth game really was the decider, with Reneem 2-1 up at this point, and Laura has to give everything to stay in it, and she just followed that straight through. I think she almost broke Reneem with that 12-10 win. It was really great to see, and it's going to be really interesting to see with the women's game, with those top 4 players and all the other from the 8 that played all week, what's going to happen with next season. Is anyone going to become dominant? Is anyone going to drop off? It's going to be difficult to predict and interesting to see. So that's all for this first episode of the Squashcast. We're going to be back in a few weeks. We're not just going to talk about tournament results. We're going to be looking at different aspects of the game. And anything you want to say as we finish this first episode, Jess?
Well, no, hopefully you enjoyed our opinions and our ramblings. feel free to encourage and pass on the love for this podcast. We want to see if it can grow and make it something out there. It's Rob and I have been speaking about it for a couple of months now, and it's just nice to actually get this recording down and yeah, just to be able to kind of offer it to the public, see what people think about it. As Rob said, we're going to extend it to different things, a few different kind of coaching ideas, or stuff like current affairs in the game and what's happening all around the world. So hopefully it'll be of interest to a lot of people, not just purely results and tournaments, but a whole few different aspects. So keep listening, keep encouraging it, and yeah, tell as many people as you can about it.
Yeah, exactly. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We're going to be posting on there about new episodes coming up in the future, and thanks very much. We'll see you next time.